Now that we have a fully functional script, the last thing I like to do is clean everything up so that it's easier to maintain and easier to work with going forward. So the first thing I'm actually going to put in here that we've been missing is a feature test. So I'm using a technique that the BBC created called cutting the mustard, where I specify the modern JavaScript APIs that I need to support. And if browsers don't support those, I just go ahead and terminate my functionality right away. So in this case, the big one for us is query selector support. If a browser doesn't support that, our script is not going to work. So we can just go ahead and bail right away. Generally speaking, though, I like to structure my scripts into 3 distinct buckets. I like to have all my variables up top. Then I like to have all of my methods and functions that I'm going to be using. And then finally down at the bottom, all of the inits and stuff that kind of runs when the script loads. So up at the top, I've pulled together the variable to grab all of my headings and the table of content container. I also have all of my placeholder variables, and then a quick little check so that if we don't have any headings or a table of content placeholder container can't be found, we can just go ahead and cancel the script and move on. I've also pulled a couple of things out into standalone methods instead of keeping them all in our for loop. So that little functionality we had to create an ID if one didn't exist, I've pulled that out into a new function called create ID. We pass in the heading. If that heading already has an ID, we can just stop doing what we're doing. Otherwise, let's go ahead and create an ID for it. Similarly, the functionality we were using to create those links, I pull that out into a function as well, where we again pass in the heading, and it'll go ahead and create those links for us. We don't need to pass in the links variable, the new level or the current level, because those are already set globally within the scope of our script. So create link already knows what they are, and it'll just kind of manipulate those. We don't need to create new ones or kind of pass them in as additional arguments on this function. And then finally down in the init section, I have my for loop, where before I used to have my code around creating an ID. I'm now just passing in the current heading into that create ID function. Same thing goes for creating the link. Rather than having all that code there, I just have this one little function where I pass in the current heading. Before we create the link, I'm grabbing the new level, the level for our current heading in the loop. And then after I create the link, I'm going ahead and updating our existing level with whatever the current one we're working on is. And that's that. We now have a fully functional table of contents script that won't run unless the browsers properly support it. It supports nesting, generates dynamically, and it's cleaned up, well documented, and easy to use. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and please feel free to check out some additional ones on ditchingjquery.com. If you have any questions, you can find my email address on the About page, and I'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts. Cheers.